The description of the materials that I'm using for this painting can be found at the bottom. I will begin this painting on a linen panel, linen canvas. And I will start by glazing with this acrylic liquid. So we're gonna start, it's a different technique. If you've been seeing some of my other paintings, I am doing something new here. I don't even know if it's gonna work, but I suppose if I post it in YouTube is because it worked. And I'm going to use a rather large flat brush. The descriptions are in the bottom. With just a slight amount of water in this brush, I'm just going to put the glazing medium all over this panel. So as I was mentioning in my other videos, I am using a different technique. I do not follow a method, but I realized that for the short painting demos that I'm doing for YouTube that are relatively short. I mean, it normally takes me a lot of hours to finish a painting, but I've been trying to do these shorter images for those interested in getting started. And I have been starting with always the same technique. So we're gonna change the technique slightly. And I have made a mix of a dark blue, that's basically ultramarine blue, and a tiny bit of Viridian green. And just above the middle line, we're going to just fill up with this very nice, I mean, it's not completely ultramarine blue. As you can see, there's a little hint of turquoise in there. So we're going to just fill this bottom part. It's a little above the middle point that we have this darker bluish greenish color. This is going to be a scene across the Boston Bay, and it's overlooking the area of East Boston where the airport is. But we're not going to be painting the airport. We're going to be painting the very loosely the skyline. So I don't even know if this is a good idea to start with a glazing medium, but what I can see is that my brush really likes gliding over this linen panel. If you see one other of my paintings, I had trouble with this linen panel in acrylic. I was having issues with not being able to paint correctly, apply the paint. It was just drying on me too quickly, and it was not taking the paint the way that I wanted. So with this medium or liquid, I'm just picking up a little bit more paint, depositing paint. These are going to be waves on the sea. Now, normally when we are painting the sea, it should be really a sort of straight line in the bottom, which is not what I'm doing. But that's because we're going to have on the edge of those piers, there was snow accumulated, so we'll have some areas of snow. However, I think it's probably working better if I can try to get as straight as possible. I could be using a ruler. If you have seen other videos that I have posted, I don't know why I don't like using rulers. I mean, not that I don't like it. I mean, I don't have them handy. And for these short video demos, I just don't like wasting time with all these measurements. Anyway, so we have established the area where we are going to have the sea. So now with a clean rag, clean paper towel, in this case, you can use paper towels. This is not too much paint. It is paint that you could have used for other painting, but don't try doing that. I've tried that and it just doesn't work. Because there's glazing medium, it's getting a bit too dirty. So I will save that particular paper towel. I am off camera cleaning the brush. After I took the excess paint, I am cleaning the brush in clean water, and you can see how easy it is to keep your brushes clean. If you don't do this during these paintings with acrylics, you may actually end up ruining your brushes and you cannot use them anymore. Okay, we are going to be daring. I don't know if this is gonna work. I think I've mentioned this, but anyway, Same brush. Now what I've made is a mix of alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, and a lot of white. And this gives me kind of a salmon color. Now I need to just leave a little bit of an edge between the salmon color that I have here and the blue. If you mix orange and blue, you're gonna get a very nasty gray, and that's not what we want. So that's the color in the bottom of what's gonna be the skyline across the bay, and the church is gonna be placed somewhere around here. Now I have the kind of the same colors, but a little bit more of the alizarin crimson. You can see it's rosier. I hope you can see it, that it's less yellow and more rosy, and this is gonna go a little bit on the top. This is the sky, and then we're gonna be painting clouds, but the sky is going to, if I am lucky that I can do it, it's gonna turn into a very light blue around this area, but it's more rosy, closer to where I am going to make it into a bluer sky. So just very gently, if you notice, I'm actually not pushing too hard. And this is probably because the glazing medium, if I push too hard, I actually take paint away from the canvas, and that's not what I'm intending to do. All right, so now we are going to just lightly, I'm going to use the same rag that we had before, just lightly brush out, not completely, because I'm still working on the pinks. And now this is alizarin crimson and white with no yellow at all, so it's a little bit pinkier, and I'm just going to add this pinkier area in some border here where it's going to be transitioning eventually into the blue. Transitioning pink on top of blue, or pink to blue, it's easier than orange to blue. And it's actually not too far from what we see in the sky. Okay, so now I'm just going to soften this edge of the pink, because once this dries, I can apply the blue on top. All right, so now what we are going to do is begin using a smaller brush. So we have the sky. This is going to be an opening of the sky with a slightly bluer tone that has transitioned, and I might come back with a little bit more of a yellow and white. And then we have the sea. So now we are going to paint the skyline. So if you have seen other videos that I have available, that's not normally what I do. So we're gonna try a different way, and let's see how I do with that other way to do it. And that's because I'm using the glazing medium, which is also new thing to use it on a white canvas before I have applied paint. Okay, so all of this area with a clean brush now, I'm actually going to use a slightly larger brush. This is the size of the brush, and it's an angle brush, and the descriptions are below. I'm just going to soften this area, and as you can see, I'm re-establishing sort of where the sea begins. Okay, so I also was able to get rid of some of that glazing medium, and we are going to use a light purple. Let's see, this is made with ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and a lot of white, and this has to be darker than the sky, but it's light because we're seeing this far away. So I'm just establishing a line, as you can see there, that goes all the way. So let's hope I don't shake too much, and this is gonna help me establishing the area where the buildings are gonna be. So the farther away, the lighter they are and the bluer they are. And this definitely is telling me, I think I like this purple color. It has a bit more of the alizarin crimson, but I like this color for establishing the first bank. And then we're gonna start adding areas of dark. Instead of going from light to dark, I am doing the opposite in this painting of what I have been doing before. And for the skyline, we are going to then come back with some sky to carve the area of the buildings. For the church, so this is like the first line of buildings, and that's why it's got the purple with a little bit more alizarin crimson brings it closer. And as we go a little bit more in the back, what we are going to do is use a mix with ultramarine blue, Viridian green, and white. So this particular color is going, in my opinion, it's going to help us define some of the buildings that are farther away from the ones that are closer. And I don't pretend to go over the buildings with precision, like architectural precision. It's just placing some of these buildings that have characteristic rooftops, and then we're going to come back with either darker or lighter areas. So there's one here that has an interesting, like a turret, and then it's got like a roof that goes like this, something like that. And I am lifting paint from before, but I'm also mixing some of that paint. So we're going to have sort of a line of buildings here. And I am lifting a lot of paint. So maybe I should not have used as much of my painting medium, of the glazing medium on the top of the canvas. But let's see, it's just a matter of letting it dry a little bit, and then I will be able to establish these figures a little better. But I don't want, I wanted to try and show you guys different ways of doing things. So then there's a building here, and the church is about this area. So we have a building in front of the church that's a bit darker, and then there's the steeple. So the tower, probably the bell tower, and the steeple are gonna go there. So I did not place it right in the middle. I moved a little bit to the left. You could have put it a little bit to the right or to the left. And then there's this height is lower than the tallest area, but it's gonna go in the area of, so that's sort of the bell tower. And then in front of that particular bell tower, I see another building, which will be slightly darker. And okay, so we are moving along, establishing some of these areas. I know that you probably don't think it's actually looking like anything, but believe me, there's an ugly stage to every painting. And if you have seen my YouTube channel, for this particular painting, I have posted the final painting, which of course I haven't seen yet, but by the time I post this, you will see it and you will decide if it's worth for you to speed up or go through the whole process. So stay with me and just see the process. My difficulties, how I resolved them or how I didn't resolve them. And if you like the final version, then you can check other videos in my channel. This is sort of a warehouse area, and there's different levels, and I'm still having that dirty color in my brush. There were some rooftops in there and some areas where there was a lighter sort of building, and that's basically farther away. They're going to be bluer. Of course, it also depends on the color of the buildings. There are some buildings that are white, and you would be tempted to paint them white, but they really should be more bluish. And if they're farther away, they're lighter, but if they're closer, they should be lighter. However, there are some light buildings in closer, and especially close to here, there were some areas with snow. So we have like a skyline. I hope you can see it. And then we have the sea. I am going to clean the brush. I have been using that dirty mix that was from using the Alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue and titanium white purple, and then the ultramarine blue and Viridian green with white that actually got, in some areas they're separate, but they got a little bit together. So the sky will be lighter. So I'm gonna take the excess paint and get a cleaner piece of a rag, get the paint out. I like to show how if you do this, sometimes we're tempted not to waste paint, but it's worth it. Then off camera, I'm just making sure that I clean my brush with clean water. I have several buckets of water, and as they get dirty, I just change to the new one. It's not that difficult to clean your brush. So I think that now what I'm going to do is try to work a bit more on the water. And in this case, there are no reflections on the water. And so what I'm going to do is just, let's see how this glazing medium is drying, because I definitely don't want it that wet. I want to be able to apply paint and not necessarily remove the paint. And it is still sort of wet. Okay, so what I am going to, let me see if I should just try to apply some. Yeah, it is getting tacky, which is what I wanted. So normally, the farther the things are, the closer to the horizon, both for water and for land, it's the lighter. However, oftentimes what I see with the sea is that in this case particularly, it did have a darker area at the back. So I'm just mixing ultramarine blue, because I ran out of it, the ultramarine blue and the Viridian green. So it's Viridian green and ultramarine blue. And I'm not mixing them completely in my brush. In the back, we are not going to see a lot of definition of waves. They will be defined more closer to us. And as you can see, I seem to be lifting paint instead of depositing paint, which is what I wanted. But it's giving me some interesting colors in there. So what I want to do now is establish some of these dark areas here in the bottom. And I will show you, I am using today a linen pad. So it's like if you don't know these pads, it's like it's true canvas, but it's not mounted. And I made the mistake of just taping it in the top. So I think you're seeing it move a lot as I apply the brush in here, but it's working. I think you are seeing a good image of applying the paint and getting this to be looking a bit like running water. So what I intend to do, following the image, so I don't actually copy the photos. Oh, that's a piece of Viridian green that was dry, so I'm just going to get it out of the canvas. Oh, if I can. Yes, I got it out. Okay. now is just making these waves, and you can see it's a big brush. So in some of these areas we are going to paint some light pink reflections from the sky, and there's going to be a bit more contrast in the bottom than in the back. In the back there's going to be less reflections. So I'm just using some alizarin crimson and the ultramarine blue dark violet to apply in some of these areas, because that's going to create a nice background for when I come back with the accents of reflections. You can probably already see the effect of having the dark applied, and as you can see, I don't follow a particular formula that sort of the brush is telling me, and also the glazing medium is deciding a lot of my final brush strokes and how the paint is applied. But just by adding the dark, you start to see, or I hope that you can see, that the areas where I'm going to have a little bit of a brighter color, which is going to be around this area, they're already showing a little brighter. So same mix of the violet, and just very gently, because I don't want to lift too much paint, but just gently on the back. And as you can see, I just move the brush, and this is a test of how to paint using this glazing medium on a linen canvas. In this case is from a linen canvas pad. The descriptions are in the bottom of this, in the YouTube, in the description area. I will put all of the materials that I used, including which colors I am using. Although they are basically here, but you will see the brand. Indian yellow, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue are my transparent colors. I usually like to use this a lot in a different technique that I have in other videos. And then for my opaque colors, in this particular painting, I will only be using Viridian green. I will not be using cadmium red medium and cadmium yellow medium. And I have also titanium white. I don't use other colors in these demos, but I do have a lot of colors. And if you have other colors and you can just find them in your tubes, feel free to just go for the color already pre-mixed. There's nothing wrong with pre-mixing. Actually makes things makes paintings faster. So if you want to paint faster, or if you don't feel comfortable mixing your own colors, go ahead and use your sets that have more colors. That's why I want to show you what kind of color I'm using. All right, so I think for the area of the sea, we have established that, you know, it's a seascape, and I am actually learning to use this glazing medium, where if you realize when I'm adding or placing the brush, sometimes it's lifting paint, and I'm using that. I'm sort of using that to create waves. So I am lifting paint and I'm depositing paint, and I am using that to create the sensation of the waves on the sea. Okay, so now we are going to move from the area of the sea to the sky. It is still very wet. Okay, well, I think the best thing for me to do at this point is to stop this tape. I will wait until the glazing medium is dry, and oops, sorry, I just banged it. I will continue this painting in the next installment. See you then.